very nearly 7:34. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Stephen and Anne.
But actually it's 7:34 now. Just shows that if you wait long enough, it comes around.
Well, it does.
Yeah.
Even a broken clock's right.
Well, that twice a day.
day.
Yeah, that's right. We'll take a look now at today's front pages for you. Let's start with the Times, focusing on the bridge blast that bridge between Russia and Crimea. It says the landmark, funded by the Kremlin, gives Ukraine now hope that it can retake the occupied peninsula.
Now, the Observer has that as well, saying Putin has been dealt a bitter blow.
And next we look at the feud between Michael Gove and Liz Truss. That's on the front page of the Mail on Sunday. Their headline reading, Sadistic Gove told, stop plots or let in Starmer.
The Sunday Express has that as well. Heads down and charge, it says, as Liz Truss attempts to revive the economy.
And again, it's Liz Truss telling MPs to unite or face disaster on the front page of the Sunday Telegraph.
Peter Tobin's ex-wife gives an interview to the Sunday Mirror as the serial killer takes secrets of other potential victims to his grave.
And The Sun on Sunday has spoken to the ex-girlfriend of former Strictly dancer AJ Pritchard, telling the paper that she's devastated he's found love elsewhere.
Oh, well, let's go through the papers now in a bit more detail with the author and journalist Susan Holder and former special advisor to Boris Johnson, Jack Sellers. Morning to you both.
Morning.
Jack, Sunday Express should be looking at the NHS fat cats.
Yes, so this is quite an interesting story, actually, given the sort of time we're in. Just to set the context, next week nurses are expected to, vote on their pay packets, and the unions are recommending that, they go out on strike against the recommended pay at the moment. But this headline, NHS fat cats told to justify their ridiculous salary or face the sack. This headline follows comments from the Conservative MP James Sunderland, who is a senior aide to the Health Secretary, and he's pretty much following from some comments being in conference, saying that some of these senior managers across the NHS are earning up to £500,000, believe it or not, and within their contracts there's no sort of key performance indicators or performance related reviews or anything to earn that salary. But what I found very interesting, which will just set the scene for the week ahead of us, is just some of the figures which I found absolutely startling from some of what some of these executives are earning. So the chief executive of the university hospitals in Birmingham is earning between £385,000 to £390,000 a year. In Hertfordshire, they're earning between £390,000 to £395,000. These are people who are earning 2.5 times what the Prime Minister is in at the moment. These are crazy salaries, and look, setting the stall out here, I'm not sort of someone who's against salaries. We've got to pay for the best people to get the best people into jobs. But I find it outstanding. Someone who's worked in government, never worked in the health department, I find it crazy that these people don't have these performance indicators already in their contracts, with waiting lists what they are, and people struggling to even get a GP appointment or whatever. I think it's a bit of a reveal for people to see what actually these people are earning
and whether they deserve it, because you can tell. It's amazing how differently you can get this National Health Service in all sorts of ways, from waiting times at A&E right through to whether you can see your GP or not. Some areas seem to be run well, and some areas seem to not be.
Yeah.
And
it does show it can happen.
Yeah, it can be run well and efficiently, because some places do it. Yeah.
I think
it has to be up to the managers, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. But I think it's absolutely right, the approach, by the way, the government here, sort of putting this into people's contracts, that, if your health board is not meeting up to scratch, then how can you justify earning, £400,000 a year? And I think the investigation itself finds that 675 managers across the NHS are earning over £150,000 a year, which is more than Liz Truss will be earning right now. So, people running the health board against someone running the country, I think there's a bit of a...
I don't know whether we would begrudge it if they were running it well.
If they were running it well, no, completely agree. Yeah, completely agree. But anyway, either way, there needs to be a system in place where they are monitored against it and they are judged against it. And if they're not earning that salary and they're not performing well, then change needs to be made.
To the Sunday Mirror, Susan, let's have a look at a loose woman.
Yes, so I'll declare a sort of interest here. So years ago, in the mid to late 90s, I was series producer of Loose Women, and Anne actually was one of the panellists at the time. We did cross paths briefly while I was there. But this story has completely shocked me. So Syra Khan has written she has a regular column in the Mirror, and she's written a column today which they've taken the story from, because what she's saying is she stepped back from Loose Women, and she's made that choice because she claims that the producers and staff on Loose Women were wanting her to do various stunts, one of which is the headline, was to create a profile on OnlyFans. Now, if you don't know what OnlyFans is, it says it's a soft porn site, but actually I think OnlyFans is quite strong stuff.
So you can just model on it.
Okay. So, but anyway, once you create your profile on OnlyFans, I don't have much experience of it, but it is a porn site. She also says that she was asked to make a kind of a plaster cast of a very intimate area of her anatomy.
And they think that was funny. They really would.
What, sorry?
They would think that was funny.
Well, yes, and the justification editorially, according to this, was to encourage women to accept that their vaginas are normal. And I don't know about you, Anne, but it's not been a concern of mine one way or another.
No, absolutely not.
But
Loose Women is a bit like that. They would think that sort of thing is terribly funny.
Yeah, and things have changed a lot since my time on Loose Women, because I've been sitting in the room and trying to think of kind of crazy things that happened in Loose Women. It was just getting it on air was pretty crazy. We used to ask people to talk about the news. Obviously, you would ask people on the panel you wanted them to reveal something about themselves and their lives, to bring their knowledge and experience to the stories you were talking about. And in some cases, people were very willing to do that. There were some areas that things might be, you've got to be careful what you say about your family or your relationships or your opinions on certain things. And I was always, as a producer, quite mindful of the fact we were asking people to do that. We'd have a morning meeting and you talk it all through. I know people who watch TV might think that Loose Women just making it up as they go along. Actually, there is...
Oh no, it's very carefully
there is an editorial behind it, or there always was. But I do find this, if this is... And she's talking in the column about just being a woman in the industry and the pressure on women in the industry to keep themselves front and centre and to be current, and the fact that Fern Cotton apparently has stepped back, saying she had so much anxiety because she was worried she might say or do the wrong thing and being vilified for it now. I mean, but you've been around before social media and since, and you must know personally how difficult that must be now.
Yes, you're always under pressure to do something to make a headline.
Do you think?
Yes. Yeah.
I find that shocking.
And that's a real pressure as well. The only person who doesn't seem to follow with the pressure is Janet Street Porter, who goes, I'm not doing that.
Yeah, that's what they booked.
You must be effing joking.
Very good.
That is very good.
And you think, thank goodness for Janet, because she's the only person who has actually got the real gumph to stand up to that sort of pressure.
I think this is difficult for ITV. This comes off the string of a lot of negative press actually. Recently and over the years, past few years.
Oh, Holly and Phil most recently with the Q. There was Love Island. Caroline Flack obviously took her own life. Jeremy Kyle show was axed after a member, someone on the panel.
They said it's reality television in a way. Of course, it's not reality really. It's hyped up television and hyped up talk, and there is an awful lot of pressure behind it. And there's always been a worry about the psychological state of the people who are in it. They're almost victims.
Well, you say there's always been a worry, but who's doing the worrying? Where is the worry? Where is the concern?
Well, the problem is a lot of these people who appear on these sort of shows want the public. You think, this would be great. It'd be great if I was in the papers every day.
Well, I think be careful what you wish for, because people do that. You're right, and then it happens, and they realise it's not any. Nobody ever wants that when it actually happens to them. I don't.
But you do get it. I've always had it. People say, "Why don't you do this? Why don't you do?
Really?
Why don't you sell your wedding pictures to the Hello magazine?" It's like, no.
No, I don't.
Why would you? It's my life.
Why would you?
It's my life. I don't want to do it. You must know what it's like. I mean, there's all the PR around Noddy and all the rest of it. You must get fed up with it at times.
Well, but again, I think Noddy Holder has been famous for a very long time. He's my husband, for anybody who doesn't know. And I don't know. You find me a salacious story in a paper about Noddy Holder, and
Don't Google it.
But at the same time, I know from that experience that you can be quite famous, and there are certain things you do. And if you don't roll out of certain places and you don't go to certain, you don't court certain people, we would never have journalists in our home. We've never had photographs taken at home. That's just something he's never done and never would do. It's actually not that hard to stay out of the papers. I think. I don't know. I mean, that's my experience, and so I think if you court it, you can.
Unless you work for an employer that wants that of you,
that puts you in a very difficult position. But you'd think with Loose Women, a band of women who should band together on that and just all kind of take a stand, then that would work. But my experience for Loose Women, and it's a long time ago now, and they're not the same bunch of people necessarily as they were then. They were. They weren't as supportive of each other as I would have liked.
But the strength of that show is the producers, not the presenters, actually. You think it's about 4 women in front of you. It's not, it's about the producers behind. They are the powerful ones, the really powerful ones.
Oh, talking of power, Jack, King Charles. The coronation planning is underway now, but we're told it's going to be pretty much pared down, according to the Mail on Sunday.
Yeah, this is quite the exclusive, actually, for the Mail today. So they got the full sort of breakdown of what they call Operation Golden Orb. So this is the blueprint plans for the King Charles's coronation. But yeah, it's marking a sort of shift in the times, I think, with King Charles sort of recognising the world we're in and recognising maybe there's not as much demand anymore to sort of, especially with the challenges we're facing, to sort of justify having a massive sort of grand and coronation. But so some of the details that they can reveal is that the ceremony is set to be reduced in length from more than 3 hours to just over an hour. The guest list is going to be reduced from what it was for Queen Elizabeth, 8,000 down to 2,000 people. There's going to be a more relaxed dress code, etc. Prince William also is playing a part in sort of organising this. But I think it's interesting. So context of this is that only a couple of weeks ago, Prince William said that he didn't have plans to have an investiture in Wales. That was quite controversial in Wales back in the day, even though, the other side of the argument would be that the investiture in Wales got something like 500 million views globally, put Wales on the map. And a lot of people will argue for this, that why shouldn't...
Would you like, as a Welshman, would you like to see it?
Yeah, personally I would, yeah. I don't think it's harmful at all. Prince William now and Prince Charles, when he was Prince of Wales, so they were massive advocates of Wales. They've massively in tune with Wales and the people of Wales, the different political realities there.
As is William. I mean, William and Kate have lived in Wales.
They lived in Anglesey. Kate started a royal life in Wales, basically. They got engaged when they lived in Anglesey. But the majority of Wales, we're going specifically onto the Wales point, but the majority of the people of Wales are massive royalists. They love the royal family. You saw this during the Queen's funeral. A lot of them would love the fact of a big investiture, I think, to sort of mark it and put Wales back on the global stage.
But they are going to use the golden carriage, the gold carriage.
Yes, that's
for the coronation.
Yeah.
So they're obviously thinking we do need a bit of a pageant.
Yeah, but there's got to be a bit of pomp to it, isn't it?
Yeah,
otherwise it diminishes the
Isn't it a case, though, in Charles's case now, that he'll be damned if he does and damned if he doesn't? Because it's a shame we're not having that. And it is, I think, what we do in this country so well is put on those ceremonies, which are incredible.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the tape of the last coronation, all of the lords and ladies are in their ermine, and the velvet, and their tiaras and things like that. And they're not going to. Apparently, they're going to probably just allow them to wear lounge suits and cocktail frocks.
I suppose it's a bit anachronistic, but actually,
I'm a bit disappointed about that.
Yeah, I am, because you want to feel. It's like what we just saw with the funeral. You feel like you're living history. However, I can understand as well how he wants to make the point of, well, let's look at the state of the country, look at the economic climate. It's not the right time
I think it's nice to do, and it's a moment of history. However, I do think everyone in their ermines would be, for a lot of us, would be a case of it's the haves and the have-nots.
Yeah.
I really think so.
Yeah, I do.
I think there's a balance to it. I think the dress wear and the gold carriage and this sort of stuff, this sort of symbolism, I think is absolutely right. I don't know. I think that's what people like, and that people like to see, and people around the globe sort of tune in to watch. But on the point of the modernation, it's sort of the modernisation rather. It's interesting that the Queen's coronation was based on her father's King George VI. His was based on King George V, and we know that Prince Philip had a real sort of modernisation role in the Queen's coronation. But I do think that if we had it based on something from 1911 was when King George V, if the current coronation was sort of based loosely on that, I think people would be saying, we're 100 years on, 110 years on. We need to keep on a little bit of modernising.
However they do it, though, I think it will still be spectacular. And the one thing that works in this country, I think, efficiently, is the royal family. When they do anything, it works. And I just kind of there's a piece on the side of that in the Mail on Sunday as well, where the retired lieutenant colonel who oversaw all the details for the funeral has spoken about some of the detail, and I just found it absolutely fascinating.
It's fascinating.
Lieutenant Colonel Anthony Mather. A replica of Westminster Hall was constructed in an aircraft hangar for dry runs of the lying-in state. Everything down to the carpet was tested by people in certain boots, and all the kind of things and he's been doing this for years and years, ever since the Queen was 70, and they would revise it every year. They used to take over the whole of the ballroom at Buckingham Palace and do it all on a PowerPoint. The Queen wasn't there, but she'd get a red box, and then handwritten notes in the margin would come back from the Queen about various things as it was changed and adapted over the years. And I just think it's incredible. This is also the same man who had to plan Diana's funeral on a blank piece of paper in 48 hours because nothing obviously had been ever done about that. I mean, this is how you put on something and put the effort that goes into making something so amazing and efficient and spectacular work.
Yeah, I quite agree. If you can go on Mail Online or buy a copy of the Mail on Sunday, I guess. But it is an absolutely fascinating interview. He goes into the detail of how he's had to plan it. And also, have to go, there were contingencies if the Queen died in certain places.
Yes.
He'd have to go and suss out the places, even down to the staircase if she died upstairs, how they would bring her
down to the lodge at Sandringham where Prince Philip would often live, which is actually quite a small house, I think, and it could have happened there. Who knows?
Yes. So everything had to be thought through and almost rehearsed.
Although I think
he's
the Queen,
fascinating.
I think the Queen was such an amazing person that I think she probably chose Balmoral.
I think
so. Yeah.
When you're in government, the plans for operation on the bridge have been they circulate year on year. They're sort of looked at, so they need to be reviewed. And personally, from my point of view, I just think whilst we have the chaos of politics at the moment over the past few years and how it's all sort of unfolded, it's good to see that some of our solid British institutions still work meticulously.
Correct.
And they're seamless and they do it all properly.
And he's a former Grenadier Guard, I think. He's a Lieutenant Colonel, isn't he? He did it with absolute precision.
We'll know his stuff.
Yeah.
Look, Susan, Jack, we're out of time. But we will see you in the next hour, so I look forward to that.